Now, I know some people who are very uncomfortable taking something for free, and they almost always make sure they make a donation somehow. I can definitely say I'm one of those people. I know when we first got here, and living in the parsonage, they were telling about the Lions pancake breakfasts. And so we went over to that, and they said, well, as a veteran, it's free. And I was like, no, your organization needs the $5 more than I need free pancakes. So I made sure they took the donation to help with their organization. So some people are not comfortable just taking something for free, and they figure out a way. And I know other people who make sure they get every freebie that they can. I know people who will never pass up the opportunity to get a free meal. It doesn't matter what presentation that they may have to sit through to get that free meal. I will admit that I don't really look out for free items or giveaways. If I see a deal on something I normally get, I may take advantage of the buy one, get one free type of thing because it's something I use. And I'll take advantage of that promotion. I don't spend a lot of time looking for free stuff. I also don't take advantage of any of my veteran perks. I know a lot of you say, well, you're a vet, you should do that. I've always considered veteran perks for those who actually saw combat, and I never did. So I really don't take advantage of veteran perks. I have not joined AARP yet, no matter how much they've asked me, which is quite often. Now, I'm sure there are some pretty good discounts in there and things that you can get, but I tend to leave those for people who may need the break more than I do. So where do you line up on the free item quest? Are you comfortable receiving free stuff? Do you think you are entitled to free stuff? I know there are people who have some delusion that everything should just be given to them. I know when we give out the free food on Saturdays, there's some people who only take what they need, and there's some who take everything they can. And if you turn your head, they're going to take more. And I always wonder if they're going to use all that or if it's going to go to waste. Because I'm okay if you're hungry and you take food, but if it's going to go to waste, somebody else could have used that. So we're going to look at the end of a passage where a person felt that something should not have been free of charge, and the result was not actually good for that individual. We're going to look at 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 25 through 27. I'm going to read these verses, but we're actually going to have to look at the whole chapter, the whole story, to get a good understanding. So 2 Kings chapter 5, 25 through 27. When he went in and stood before his master, Elisha asked him, "Where have you been, Gehazi?" "Your servant didn't go anywhere," Gehazi answered. But Elisha said to him, "Was not my spirit with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to take money, or to accept clothes, or olive groves and vineyards, or flocks and herds, or male and female slaves? Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and to your descendants forever." Then Gehazi went from Elijah's presence, and his skin was leprous. It had become as white as snow. Now, this is the end of the passage, and we really need to cover what led up to this. If you did the teaser video, it told you to read the whole chapter and actually told you some things to think about as you read this. But there are basically three main characters in this story. There's Elisha, who is a prophet. There's Gehazi, who is his servant for Elisha. And then there's Naaman, who is the commander of the army of Aram. Now, Naaman had leprosy. And a young girl from Israel who had been taken captive told her master, Naaman, that if he would go see the prophet in Samaria, he would be cured of his leprosy. So this is a slave girl. I guess she's a key part too, but she kind of told Naaman that if he would go see this prophet in Samaria, he would be able to cure him of his leprosy. So Naaman, being the king or head of the army of Aram, went to the king of Aram and asked if he could travel to Israel to see this prophet and be cured. Now the king of Aram gave him permission, and not only that, he wrote a letter to the king of Israel to basically say that he was sending his servant, this leader of his army, so that he could be cured of his leprosy. So Naaman went with his attendants and this letter. The king of Israel receives the letter, and he read it, and then he tore his robes in anguish. He figured the king of Aram was looking for a reason to go to war. Because how was he supposed to cure this man's leprosy? Because he was not God. Could you imagine receiving a letter from a powerful leader saying, I'm sending my servant for you so you can help him, so you can cure him? How would you react if you received that letter? Would you react like the king of Israel, tearing his robes in worry and in anguish because he knows he can't cure this individual? The king of Israel, he sees this as an impossible task. And he kind of felt like he was being set up. You know, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. So he's kind of upset, he's worried, he's anxious, and then Elisha, the prophet, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes and that he was in worry over this letter from the king of Aram. So Elisha sends a message and says, hey, send the man to me. So the king of Israel is like, great, no problem. So he says to Naaman to go and see Elisha. So he sends him to go see Elisha. Naaman arrives with his entourage, which would be servants or attendants. And he sees Elisha, and he sends a servant to go and see what Elisha has to say or do. So Elisha tells Naaman to go and wash himself 7 times in the Jordan. Now Naaman left angry. Can you imagine that? He left angry because he thought Elisha was going to call down prayers from his God, and that he was going to cure his leprosy. And so when Elisha didn't do this, Naaman's kind of disgusted. How many times in Scripture do we see where someone has an idea of what they think should happen, and when it doesn't happen the way they think it should happen, they get upset, they get angry, right? So he even points out when he's told, to go and bathe in the Jordan, he goes, the rivers in Damascus are so much better than the Jordan, right? How many of you have seen waters that you're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go into that, right? I will tell you, I will not swim in the Atlantic Ocean again. After seeing the Pacific Ocean and seeing the islands and seeing how pure and clear that water is, yeah, I'm not going in it. But, I've seen places where people have been baptized by the river. When I was in high school, we used to go to our cross-country coach for a summer picnic he lived out in Adams County, and he had a pond. And guys would jump in there and go swimming. I'm like, nope, not going in there. I like to be able to see where I'm going, what might be in the water, right? So this is kind of what Naaman's saying. He's like, the Jordan, the rivers in Damascus are so much better than this Jordan. So he's kind of upset, but his servants kind of talk some sense into him. His servants kind of tell Naaman, they said, if Elijah had asked you to do some great feat, to do some great deed, you would have surely done it. Right? If he would have given you some challenge, go climb a mountain, go defeat so-and-so, you'd go and take it on and do it. So why not just go and wash in the Jordan like he asked, like Elisha asks? So Naaman basically listened to some reason from his servants. And so he goes and he went into the Jordan and he dipped himself in it 7 times. And when he finished, his leprosy was gone. Which might be why the Jordan is kind of nasty. Everybody go in there and get dipped. But anyway, so his leprosy was gone. Immediately, Naaman and his attendants went back to Elisha and praised the God of Israel as the one true God. Saying, this is a God that can cure leprosy. This is a God that can do these great things. So they go and they praise Elisha's God, the God of Israel. They also tried to pay Elisha for his work. But Elisha refused to accept payment. And so Naaman's kind of struggling with this idea that he wanted to pay Elisha for the work that he did for curing him. And And Elisha will not accept this payment. So now Naaman's kind of like has his burden of accepting this for free when it deserves such a great reward. So Elisha actually relieves Naaman of his mental burden, that anguish that Naaman was going through, and told him, go in peace. God, this is God's glory. It's not my glory. God did this for you. So go in peace. So Naaman and his servants and attendants, they leave. And so, because Elisha wasn't going to take payment for any work that God did. Elisha sees himself as a prophet, but that all the glory, all the time goes to God. So one of the things that we need to think about is when we serve, are we looking for a pat on the back? Are we looking for acknowledgement for our service? Do we do it so people will notice? Or are we doing it for God's glory? Humble servants who are just trying to serve God are not looking for rewards or accolades. They just want to see God's glory being revealed. Is our service with that same mindset? I know I've had people come up to me, actually some that were in this church, who got recognized for being volunteers or doing volunteer work. And I said, hey man, that's great. They said, well, shouldn't you announce it in front of the church? I said, no. I said, you did it. Isn't this between you and God? Why do we need to make a big deal in front of the church that you got a certificate for volunteering or for doing service? That certificate should be enough. Actually, it should have been enough without even a certificate. And that was something that, it was a teaching lesson, I guess. So, when we think about why we do our service, is it for God's glory, or are we looking for acknowledgement? Are we looking for rewards? Are we looking for little plaques with frames on them? So now, after that happened, Gazi now gets involved. He felt that Elisha left Naaman off way too easy. I mean, come on, he cured him of his leprosy. God cured him of his leprosy. And you're just letting him go with a clear conscience? So Gazi thought that Elisha should have accepted the gifts that were offered by Naaman. So he actually tracked Naaman down and told Naaman that Elisha had changed his mind. And that 2 travelers had just stopped by. So Gazi asked for 2 talents of silver and 2 sets of clothes for these travelers. And Naaman freely gave them to him with gratitude. Again, Naaman was excited to be able to pay back the prophet for what he did. So Gazi then went back and he stashed the talents and the clothes away in the house, so no one would know where they were but him. Then he went to see Elisha. Now this is where the passage I read today picks up. He arrives back and Elisha asked him where he had been. Now Gazi lies and said he didn't go anywhere. Then Elisha, again a prophet, tells him that his spirit was with him when he spoke to Naaman, when the man got out of his chariot. And then when his spirit was there when Gazi took the clothes and the talents. Elisha knew everything that had happened and asked Gazi if this was the time to start taking payment for God's work. Then listen to all the things that Elisha mentions as payment. He mentions clothes, olive groves, vineyards, flocks, herds, servants. Sounds like these type of payment options had been brought up before. And Elisha had always declined, has always turned them down. I mean, I don't think these are just him naming random items. I think these were all items people offered to pay him for things that the prophet did and, well, God did through the prophet. Because Elisha was not serving God to make money or to get wealthy. But he was doing it in honor of the Lord in any way that he could. Gazi then was struck with leprosy for his actions. And the punishment for the leprosy was not only going to cling to Gazi, but it was also going to cling to his descendants too. So Gazi not only affected himself, but a few generations after him. So Gazi made some very bad decisions in this story. He decided that they should be paid So he lied to Naaman. He tried to cover up his lie to Elisha. But worse, he implied that God's blessings could be bought. And there are quite a few good lessons for all of us in this story. We need to make sure we know the reason why we are doing something. Are we doing it for glory or reward? Or are we doing it for God's glory? Are we trying to take credit for something that we didn't do? Elisha knew that God was the one who healed Naaman. So why should he take credit for it? Have any of us ever taken credit